Hello and welcome to the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson. I'm Leon Wilson. Tonight I am excited to introduce my guest. It's been a long time coming. He's one of the people that I find most influential in my circle of folks that I trust, that I know are people of God, which is important for me because I do not want to give credit to anybody that is not influencing in a biblical way. That's important to me. And other people, other ministries might say otherwise, might do otherwise, but I think it's important that we edify those who edify us and edify the kingdom, want to build up the kingdom. My friend is a professional wrestler. He's a missionary to a good part of the world, and he's a man of God, and he's an entrepreneur, but most importantly, he's my friend. And my friend is Richie Scruggs. Hey, Richie,
brother,
how are you, buddy?
Glad to be here, my friend. And you said that right, brother. I'm the same way. I'm the type of person that when my feet hit the floor in the morning, I want the devil to say, "Oh no, Richie's up." That's the kind of day I want to have every day.
Amen.
Regardless of how I feel.
Yeah.
And there's days when I don't feel good, but I still want to be the person because you know as well as I do, we may be the only Jesus some people see.
That's right.
So can't let the bad day show. God woke me up for a reason, and as long as He wakes me up and puts breath in my body, brother, I'm going to share it. I'm
Amen.
Share it everywhere I go.
Amen. So I guess the first thing I kind of want to know is what are you into these days? What's going on?
Well, of course, the ministry is keeping us busy. Wrestling for Christ it keeps us busy. We travel here in the Carolinas, Georgia. We were in Florida last week, Georgia a week before that, and I tell people all the time, Leon, you yourself share the gospel through preaching, share the gospel through this podcast. Some people, like your sister, share the gospel through voice and singing. Yeah. I just happen to do it through wrestling.
Yeah,
that's the gift that God gave me, and from my early days on, I've always wanted to be a professional wrestler, and I'm a Christian who just happens to wrestle. I was a Christian first, and then the wrestling came on second, and why not? I mean, it draws the crowd in. Why not use that as a platform to share the gospel? And it works. If
Amen.
Done right, it works. Anything done right can work to share the gospel.
Oh, I guarantee you, that's the truth, and the boldest truth. One thing that I absolutely love about the conversations that you and I have had is God uses unorthodox people to do amazing things that we would have never expected.
Exactly.
And when we think of preaching, we think of like Billy Graham, and my goodness, Billy Graham. We think of Moses. Moses did a lot of preaching directly from God to the people of Israel. And, you don't have to say very many words in that wrestling ring to preach.
No.
But it's, the one thing that struck me and it resonated with me is the fact that y'all keep your clothes on, and a lot of wrestlers don't. Mainstream secular wrestling, they typically don't. So when did that decision start?
Oh.
And like how has that been a struggle?
Well, for me, it's not been a struggle. My character is the American GI after my father. My father was a 30-year military man, retired Sergeant Major. Mom and Dad both are buried in Arlington. So, I grew up in the military life. So wrestling is the American GI. I wear camouflage fatigues and, the vest. And I can remember back probably my second or third year in the business, finally got my grandma and my grandpa to come watch a show. And the reason my grandmother didn't come is because of the way the women dressed and the men dressed. And so talked grandma into coming, and she was tickled to death to see that I was in clothes, wrestling. And, what she said, "I don't want to see you wrestling your underwear, son." But she told me, she said, "If I ever see you wrestling your underwear, I'll never come back."
My goodness.
So that's always been something that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you talk wrestling, the show that we just did in Georgia a couple of weeks ago, I talked to that pastor for months, and he just wasn't too sure. He's like, "Richie, I don't know how wrestling and sharing the gospel is going to work. I watch wrestling." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Brother, listen, what you watch is not the same thing we do. We use the same talent. Yeah. We use the same skills. We just approach it different and do it different."
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, the young people want it, and we'll see how it goes. So we'll give it a trial run." So we go, we do the show, And I bet that man's called me 10 times. And,
My
and that
goodness.
is like the greatest thing ever. I mean, who knew that wrestling and sharing the gospel could go hand in hand?
Yeah.
And I said it earlier. If done right, you can use anything to share the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, we just use wrestling, and it does work. And my guys are okay with it. I've got guys that are in the gym twice a day sometimes, just look like they're cut out of stone and got the best bodies in the world, and they'd love to show it, but they understand that that's not wrestling.
Right.
You know, I want my guys I don't want to upset. We tell people all the time, Leon, you can bring a kindergarten kid, you can bring your great grandma. It's a family friendly show. You're not going to have to worry about upsetting anybody because you're not wearing clothes. And that does upset people.
Yeah.
You know, I try to set us apart, or we set ourselves apart from other federations, and it works. If done right, it will work. And I've been wrestling professionally since 1990, and we started the ministry in 2017. Well, started the ministry in 2008 when I started traveling to the Philippines, and I've used wrestling every time I've went. We take the belts, we share the gospel through wrestling over there. But 2016, one of the local pastors came to the United States to raise some support, came to one of our shows, and he approached me and said, "What would it take to bring you guys to the Philippines?" I said, "Brother, you just invite us, we'll come."
Yeah.
I said, "We'll have to have a ring." He said, "So if I build you a ring, will you come?" 2017, we went. Leon, our first show over there, we had 15,000 people.
Wow.
In attendance. 2,500 of them accepted Christ.
Praise God.
So we've seen thousands. And when I say thousands, I mean literally thousands upon thousands accept Christ through wrestling. So it does work.
Man, yeah. I'd say that's the definition of it works.
And what we do is I tell people all the time, we wrestle for them, then we bring in local pastors to wrestle with their hearts. That's how we do it. So, I mean, it's wrestling involved all the way around. So I share, my guys will share. We don't just wrestle when we're over there either. We do vacation Bible schools. We do youth camps, basketball camps, but we always have a host pastor that houses us, takes care of us. He always shares in their native tongue. They speak great English, so we do get to share, but then the preachers really get out there and lay the message down, just like you did the other night. You know, we had one accept Christ the other night.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? Through wrestling.
It's amazing.
Who would have thought that years ago? Nobody.
Yeah.
But it can be done. And it's not just us. There's other federations out there that share the gospel through wrestling. I've got some good friends that do the same thing that we do. We're all in it together. We share talent. They'll come do our shows. We'll go do their shows. But it's all about saving the lost at all cost. That's what we do.
I love that. I was, and I'm just being honest and transparent and vulnerable a little, I guess. But I was skeptical when I first heard of it. And I was thinking, what? But here's what I know about Jesus is the gospel is guerrilla warfare.
Exactly.
In this world. And when I saw how y'all put it together, well, how God put it together through y'all, seeing the talent, that it's real, it's not some type of gimmick. It's, you know, and don't get me wrong, and I'm saying this not trying to burst any bubbles, but like the way that y'all handle yourselves and the way that you protect each other and the way that you, because you got to know how to fall.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, that's a message in and of itself.
Exactly.
But seeing the way that y'all put it together, the way the delivery was done, the fact that you tie it to the gospel, it just is further proof that the church is not necessarily built with walls.
Exactly.
And that resonated with me. Let me ask you this. What came first, your salvation or wrestling?
My salvation. Got saved back in 1988. Leon, growing up, I went to church.
Yeah.
I tell people this story all the time when I share my testimony. Went to vacation Bible school every year, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, went to youth camps. But I always sat in the back of the church, and I was one of those young men that would pass those notes to the little girls. Do you like me? Check yes or no. So I was going to church. My parents knew I was going to church, but I was going for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So I had the head knowledge of Jesus Christ all those years, but in 1998, I finally got the heart knowledge.
Praise God.
And my life's never been the same.
So what'd it take?
I guess I can say this on there, having the hell scared out of me.
Yeah.
I went to the young lady, she's my wife now, 37 years coming this year, but went to a Valentine's banquet, Valentine's Day, 1988, thinking I was just going to a dinner. Cheap dates, the way I was looking at it, dressed up, went with her, met all of her friends. Well, that night, it was at a fellowship hall.
Okay.
But it was town hall. I'm sorry, it was at a town hall. The church didn't have a fellowship hall. So it was at a town hall. So I didn't know I was going to church. And like I said, growing up, my place in the church was always in the back.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say that growing up, all the churches that I attended and being in the military, we traveled and moved a lot. I can't remember one of the pastors' names.
Wow.
So the first pastor that I actually remember is the pastor that showed up, that was there that night at the Valentine's banquet. And after it was all said and done, everybody slid their chairs up front. So I was about as close as me to you.
Wow.
That pastor, something. So that was the first time I think I ever really heard the gospel.
My goodness.
And the next morning, that was Saturday night. And that next morning, Sunday morning at Faith Baptist Church in Shelby, North Carolina, I got saved.
Praise God.
Not always been the man I should be, but I'm thankful I'm not the man I used to be.
Yeah.
You know, Lord pricked my heart that night, and I knew I needed to get saved. So that was back in Valentine's Day night. So anytime we have a Valentine's Day is always special to me and my wife. And that's one of the reasons, you know. But things have just gotten better. I mean, just gotten better. Gooder and gooder is what I tell people. Every year since then. And then the ministry itself is just something. I can remember going to school, getting in trouble in class for drawing wrestlers. You know, I took art in school and still claimed to be a pretty good artist, and would draw, you know, the wrestlers of the time. And my teacher was like, "You need to get back to work." And I used to tell people, "So one of these days I'm going to be a professional wrestler."
Yeah.
No, that's never happened. And I've got guys that I went to school with that come to my shows now and said, "Man, I remember back in the day you said you were going to do this." And, you know, not only am I doing it, but I'm using it as a ministry.
Yeah.
I love it more today than I ever have, just because of that. Just because I know I'm getting to share the gospel, or the gospel's going to be shared.
Yeah.
And we don't lose a lot of people because of that. When people show up at our shows, they know that we're wrestling for Christ, that it's a ministry. Every show we have, intermission, you know for yourself, we have a guest speaker. Doesn't always have to be a preacher. It's just somebody that can tell a story. Might be a special person that can sing and share the gospel through song, just like your sister, just like Justin and his group. But we get the message out there at every event.
That's amazing.
I feel like we would fail if we didn't do that. If we just showed up and wrestled without at least sharing the gospel.
Yeah.
The wrestling comes second.
Yeah.
You know, the wrestling's the cake. The sharing the gospel's the icing on the cake.
I love that.
That's the way we look at it. It's the way we need to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not a me thing. It drives my wife crazy when I'm sharing. Sometimes I'll say, I did this or I did that. And I can see her. If we're at a church, she'll be pointing at me. It's not you. It's God that does that.
Yeah.
So when we stop doing that, I think the fans will quit coming.
Yeah.
I think the ministry will stop if we just use the wrestling just for us.
Yeah.
Just to get us out there, just to sell the merchandise, just to have the show. All the money that we raise goes straight to the ministry. We don't collect anything out of this. It all goes to the ministry, and it all helps us get to the Philippines. We go every year. We take a group over there, and the money that comes in just helps share the gospel. We buy musical instruments. We buy shoes. Do I have time to tell a story?
Man, yeah.
So it's been probably 4 or 5 years ago. My wife had called me one day and she said, "Have you looked at your Facebook page today?" And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "Just get on there." This usually gets me. I try to keep my composure when I tell the story,
buddy.
But the pastors, they go to church in the Philippines 7 days a week. And when I say 7 days a week, if they're not in church, they're knocking on doors.
Right.
If they're not knocking on doors, they're holding youth fellowships. If they're not holding youth fellowships, the choirs practice and the young people are playing together. So they walk the soles off of their shoes. And I happened to notice this young preacher boy didn't have any soles on the bottom of his shoes. He had duct tape on them. So after the service one day, I said, "Hey, buddy, let's go to the mall. Me and you go to the mall. And I want to buy you a pair of shoes." Of course, no, you don't need to do that, Brother Rich. You don't need to. I said, "No, I want to. No, I don't have. This is something I want to do." So we go to the mall, and I let him pick out any pair of shoes that he wants, and I buy them for him. So I get on my Facebook page, or get on his Facebook page, and it says, "This is the greatest day of my life."
Man.
I got my first real pair of shoes.
My goodness.
when we get our shoes dirty, we want to discard them. And
Yeah.
my kids will get wrinkles in their shoes and they need a new pair of shoes. We're talking about kids that don't have shoes.
Yeah.
And he said and he had a picture of himself holding those shoes up
My
that Brother
goodness.
Richie bought them. Man, I'm so unworthy.
Right.
We take so much stuff for granted. And then you got a kid over there that first pair of real shoes he's ever had.
Man.
It's all hand-me-downs, flip-flops,
Yeah.
just stuff duct taped on his feet. And it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I love the Philippines. We are so spoiled here in America.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what that is.
Yeah.
They smile all the time. They go to church, like I said, all the time. They love the Lord. They're so hungry over there for the gospel. They don't know anything else.
Yeah.
They don't know what it's like not to have air conditioning. A lot of the places we go, they don't know what it's like to have running water. 2 years ago, we were in one of our new churches that we helped the rest of Christ help build. The ministry did, and we got to Vacation Bible School that morning, and I noticed there was a long line of kids to the bathroom. Well, we had helped put a real working toilet in their bathroom. A lot of places over there just have a hole in the floor, and that's their toilet. So I asked the pastor, I said, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, I told all these kids they could get one square of toilet tissue, and they could ball it up and put it in that toilet and hit the button and watch it go down.
My goodness.
And so the second day there was twice as many kids. So word got out. Hey, they got a real toilet at this place.
Amazing.
And stuff that we take for granted.
Yeah.
But those kids were just balling it. I thought maybe they were sick or something. They were balling up toilet paper and dropping it, hitting the button, watch it go down. They was just amazed to see a toilet.
When I was over in Europe, when I was deployed, I saw my first experience of the hole in the floor. And I also saw my first experience of seeing a smart toilet that cleans itself. And after seeing the hole in the floor and then seeing the smart toilet, I realized that America's somewhere right in the middle. And we are, in fact, roughly 200 years ahead of some countries.
We are.
And I remember my first pair of shoes that I had that wasn't plastic, that weren't from like a dollar store. I was raised poor, and I understood, we called them buddies back in the hood. And so I was raised on these plastic, sole shoes. And so I learned how to play basketball. And when I stopped, I would gauge my stop by the slide, by the amount I would feel. I knew I had to slide. A kid gave me some Shaquille O'Neal shoes, and they were, I guess he had gotten some other shoes, and his family was well off, or at least more well off than I was.
Exactly.
But he had given me these shoes, and they were beat up. I mean, he beat them up. But I remember the first time on that basketball court that I stopped in those shoes and I fell over. I lost my balance. I had the ball and everything. And I didn't expect to be able to stop on a dime. And so this lanky kid, I'm literally twice the man I used to be. But I stopped on this dime, ball head over heels, and I had to relearn how to stop playing basketball. But these kids, and I've seen pictures that you posted and saw the pictures of when y'all came back and was showing at church how everything had gone, and seeing some of these kids literally asleep on the side of the road, and just like y'all being like, are they alive?
Yep.
And that right there, if nothing else, will break your heart. Tell me about the first time. Well, tell us about the first time you went to the Philippines and why.
Well, I'm telling you. Well, like I said, I got saved in 1988 and was always still a back row Christian, always sat in the back. And I can remember one Sunday morning, my pastor at the time, had said he had talked to a gentleman that was at IBOM, which is International Baptist Outreach Missions, and said, Dr. Wendell Runyon, he's gone on to heaven now. I love that man. He was like my grandpa, but anyways, long story, a different story. But my pastor stood up and said, he's interested in taking a group of men to the Philippines on a missions trip. And I know we take young people all the time, but I think I want to take a group of men. If anybody wants to go, raise your hand. And Brother Leon, I can tell you, my hand went up, but I didn't raise it.
Goodness.
And I can remember my two boys sitting next to me, and my youngest one at the time said, "Daddy, what are you doing?" I said, "I guess I'm going to the Philippines." So I went. There was like 13 of us that went that year. And my very first trip, you know, it's 110, 115 degrees just around the clock.
Yeah.
It's just one of the poorest countries in the world. And one of my first experiences over there is we were staying at a little hotel. And I can remember going out in the mornings. I'd get up and walk and go out and pass out gospel tracts. And I got to talking to this little fellow one day, and he had a van seat. He had had roped it off to a tree and was setting up a stand, and he was selling, you know, coconut milk, and was selling, you know, just little knickknacks to make a penny here and there. And Lynn, I tell you, by the end of that week, not only did he have the bench there, but he had put metal around the sides and put a tarp over top of it. And him and his wife and his two kids were living there.
Wow.
The kids were sleeping on the van seat, and him and his wife were sleeping up underneath it.
Wow.
And just broke my heart.
Yeah.
Broke my heart. But they were happy. I spoke to this man every day. He'd speak to me, and they speak good English. Mm-hmm. They got to know my name. I got to know his name, and I'd get out and walk in the morning. He said, "Brother Richie, have a good day. God bless you." But just so happy because they don't realize they think they've got everything.
Yeah.
They really do. You were talking about running around in the basketball shoes. My tag team partner, Dan Holman, coaches basketball, and we ran a basketball camp one year over there, and he could tell you, we were watching kids running up and down the floor, doing like you said. They would stop, and their bottoms would fall off their shoes. They would stop, put duct tape around them, get right back in the game. We saw kids who they had the tops of the shoe, but like barefooted on the bottom.
Wow.
We saw that, and they're just laughing, playing, having a good time.
Goodness.
They just don't know.
Yeah.
They do not know. And my first youth camp ever, this is a funny story too. So we go to a youth camp in Dingalan, Aurora. And Pastor Jess has actually preached at our church at Love Springs, and it was his youth camp. And so I go to my room, and I walk in my room, and there's the grab bars on the wall and the hole in the floor. That was my first ever. I figured out what it was when I saw it. I was like, the grab bars are there, and then there's the hole in the floor, but there was a 55-gallon drum with a ladle in it. Well, I figured out, I stand over that hole. That was my shower. So I did that during youth camp, and just, you know, that was what I did. And I got used to that week. And I can remember that went on for about 2 years there. And I can remember we were eating breakfast one morning, and the pastor come up to me and said, "Brother Rich, is there anything that we can change to make you more comfortable?" And I said, "No." I think they were afraid I wasn't going to come back, because I think that happens a lot. Well, I went that first year with the group of 13, and then I continued to go back every year by myself. Not that those guys don't support me, but it's a hard trip. It's a hard trip. It's not, people's like, "When are you going back on vacation to the Philippines?" It's not a vacation.
Yeah.
You're talking 110, 125 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the places we stay have no running water, no electricity. So, you know, you don't have any air conditioning. But he said, "Now I know there's something. Just be honest with me. If there's something we could change at this camp for you, what would it be?" And I just was honest. I said, I'd love to have a working shower, and I'd love to have a toilet.
Yeah.
And I said, and if any way possible, I'd love to have air conditioning. They're used to it. I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I said, you know, that's not going to stop me from not coming back. Well, the third year I went to camp, I'm walking down the steps to where I thought was my room. And he said, "Well, Brother Richie, stop. You're not staying down there. You're staying over here." Leon, he walked me into the church, into a private room that they had built just for me. And when I say just for me, I mean other missionaries use it now. But he said, "No, this is your room." Had a king-size bed, huge walk-in shower, working toilet. Treat me like a king. And I've said it earlier, I'm so unworthy. But they said, "Brother Richie, this is your room. You will never have to stay down there. And this is where you stay."
My goodness.
Another funny story. I got a quick minute to tell another funny story.
Oh, yeah, you got plenty of time.
Got air conditioning in that room, which was awesome. I mean, it's so hot outside. I come in, air conditioning's working. So it gets to working so good, I get cold. So I go knock on this pastor's door. It's like 3:00 in the morning. I'm freezing to death. And when I say the pastor and his wife and all their kids, they stay in one little room.
Wow.
But they live in the church, but they just live. It's the church. It's not their home. I mean, that's where they live at. But I knocked on the door, and he said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Is there any way I can get a blanket?" Well, then I hear everybody bust out laughing. And I'm sitting there thinking, "That's not funny. I'm cold." And he was like, "Brother Richie, this is the Philippines. We don't need blankets. So, because they didn't even have air conditioning.
Right.
But they found me a couple of extra sheets. So I made do. So now, when I get there, a lot of times when I get there, I'll buy like a blanket or a throw or something because they do treat us like kings over there. I mean, they treat us. It's unbelievable. But yeah, that was a funny story. They all laughed and said, well, you know, this was the Philippines. We don't have blankets here. So, yeah, true story. Yeah.
So when you first went over there with your wrestling ministry, and these folks saw you, and I know some of them saw you before that because you said you had gone prior, and you're not a short guy.
No.
You know, you're above average guy.
Yeah. Well, the average over there, they're like 5'5". So when I walk down the street in the morning, I can see from one end of town, and it's elbow to elbow people. But I can see from one end of town to the next because there's nobody taller than me.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody over there, and you probably know this yourself, my wrestling name's the American GI, which I think is pretty cool over there because they call everybody GI.
Yeah.
I thought they were like, oh, man, these people know me. And then the host pastor that I was with that time was like, they call all Americans GIs. I was like, oh, I thought maybe they knew me. No, they call all Americans GI just because of what happened in the war. And I was like, oh, okay.
Goodness.
I thought it was just because they knew the American GI. But yeah, and I'm not, height-wise, I'm one of the tallest, but I'm not the biggest guy that goes over there with this group. So yeah, they look at these guys in awe. I mean, they look at us like we're giants. And over here we're just average Joes. But man, yeah, we get noticed when we walk down the streets, but they all come up to us and love on us, just hug on us, and just thankful that we're there. They just want to talk to you. Yeah. And when you go to pass them a gospel tract, or you even tell them John 3, do you know John 3:16? They'll say, yes, I know John 3:16. They might not know any other verse in the Bible but that one. Yeah. Because they don't have access like we do. We can stop just about anywhere and buy a Bible. Right. We can get on our phones and load up. They don't have that there. Yeah. But man, when you go to pass them a gospel tract and start reading that tract to them, it's like you've got them eating out of the palm of your hand. They want it so bad.
Yeah. They're hungry for it.
They are hungry. And we find that everywhere we go. Every town, and we go to literally hundreds of towns, little villages, but they want it so bad. They want it so bad. So it makes it easy for us. Yeah. And they teach English as a second language. So we get along pretty well over there. We have to slow our speech down, but they understand everything we say. Well,
I know hearing them preach, the couple pastors, JP and all of them, it was just the passion that they share and the passion y'all have. You think, man, they're wrestling, they're acting, they're in character, they're doing this, but walking into the locker room and seeing y'all and praying with y'all and just seeing how y'all fellowship outside of the locker room, and when y'all set up and when you tear down, seeing the cohesion, the joking, the bantering, the fellowship, the love, the camaraderie.
It's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And we're family. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm having everybody over at the house Saturday. Everybody comes. We do it once a year. We're getting ready to purchase our tickets for our Philippines trip, but we have everybody over. We just sit around fellowship, do hamburgers and hot dogs. And when I say everybody, it's husbands, wives, kids. We just have, but that's just what we do. Yeah. We love each other's company. We get there early. We set up. We get in the locker room. We cut up, carry on, fellowship. We tear down. We hang around after tear down, fellowship. And we don't just see each other during wrestling. We hang out. I mean, we're friends. We talk. I talk to those guys almost every day. Dylan and Travis. I mean, they were two of the guys. I tell this story too. I'd always invite people. I'm like, I'd love for you to go to the Philippines with us. And a ton of people would always come up. So, Brother Richie, I'm going next year. Or, GI, I'm going next year. And I'd say, so we got a group together this year. And then everybody would back out. Well, Dylan Dollar and Travis Roberts, two of the guys that go with us that are part of the ministry team, told me the same thing several years ago. We're going to go with you next year. And I got to the point where I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But they kept telling me and kept telling me and kept telling me. It's like, I got my passport. I got my money raised. But I can't get rid of those guys. Not that I would want to, because I love them. Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to be their dad. I think Dylan, they're in their early 30s, and I'm old enough to be their dad. But they're like my brothers. They're like my little brothers. Yeah. And if I don't talk to them every couple of days, I miss them
Yeah.
because they're my family. And we might not have a wrestling show for a couple of weeks, but I talk to these guys every day. We check in on each other. We check in on each other's kids, wives. So it's more than just the wrestling for us.
That's awesome.
And those guys go every year, Dylan and Travis. And I mean, and Dan and Fred goes with us. And then we took Lana and James Ballou last year.
Yep.
And, oh man, what an unbelievable experience
They had
that
a
was.
time too.
Well, we went to a place that we'd never been to before and had an opportunity to wrestle with the indigenous people in the jungle.
Wow.
So I can remember asking that local pastor, I said, brother, what's behind the church here down in there? And he's like, we don't know. We've never been. Well, Lana, of course, being a beautician, she sets a chair up and starts cutting 1 or 2 heads of hair. Before I know it, they're lined up.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, Leon, some of these people hadn't had a haircut in years.
Man.
Not by a beautician. Yeah, she made them look like rock stars. I was like, you need to get a photo shoot going now. She made those guys look like $1 million.
They are precious.
But I'm talking about when they sat down, the kids, the older men, the women, just the biggest smiles on their faces, just because here's an American lady taking, and she probably had, I know she did. I know her and James both had better things to do. But they came with us on that missions trip, and you would not believe that they blessed so many people. James became known as the Candy Man. He had candy, and Leon, one of my first trips over, I brought a big bag of Jolly Ranchers, and I can remember one of the little villages. I gave the little girl a piece of candy, a Jolly Rancher, and she got so excited, but she never even unwrapped it. And then the pastor said, "You got to show her what to do with that." And I was like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
He's like, "She doesn't know what that is." So I got one out of the bag, opened it up, and put it in my mouth. And then when she opened hers up and put it in her mouth, 15 minutes later, there was kids everywhere.
My goodness.
She done went and told all her friends, "Hey, this is some good stuff this American guy's got."
Yeah.
So we take candy. James became known as the Candy Man. He was our referee. And what a blessing it was to have them over there to experience. To see it on pictures, to see it on videos is one thing, but to touch it is a whole different story.
So let me ask you this. What is your main way of getting funding for these mission trips?
When you buy a ticket to one of our events, that's what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
That's what you're doing. We try to raise funds through sponsorships, and we get a few sponsors here and there. But like I said, with that pastor in Georgia, a lot of people, when you see wrestling or you talk about wrestling, they're so used to seeing what they've seen for years on TV, the blood and gore and just the actions, the language. But once they come to one of our shows and see it, they continue to come back and it grows. And then, you're telling the guy, "Hey, you need to come to professional wrestling. Watch this WFC group." And they put on a good family-friendly show. Right. So when you buy a ticket or when you buy merchandise, that's what you're funding. You're helping us get over there. You're helping us buy gospel tracts. You're helping us buy the shoe. It's not us.
Yeah.
It's the ministry. So even buying Nelvin shoes, that's nothing that I did. That was all God. But all that support comes from our fans.
Right.
When you come to one of our events, that's how we go. That's how we do what we do.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We would go regardless.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. If we were to have a bad year and it's like, "Hey man, there's no money in the account this year to go," we're going.
Yeah.
We're going. But by coming to one of those events, that's what supports us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go all over the United States for the most part?
Anywhere that wants us to come, we come.
Where have you not been that you want to go?
Well, the guys are talking about going to the UK, and it's doable. And working with International Baptist Outreach Missions, they've got churches all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I've been asked several times to go to Egypt, go to the UK, but my heart's in the Philippines. I don't know how to explain that. I'm afraid if I go somewhere else, I may miss out on my Philippines. And they're my family. Yeah. Those pastors over there and their wives and their kids. I don't know what I would do. The COVID year drove me crazy.
I bet.
We didn't go. I was so heartbroken. I mean, it was like last minute too. If I could have got over there, brother, I would have went. If I'd had to stay several months, I would. But everything got canned right before we left. But that was a tough year for me personally, because I didn't get to see those kids. And it's funny, Leon, because there's kids over there that I've known since birth. I've been going over since 2008. Mm-hmm. So they're now graduating high school. Some of them have gotten married. Some of them have had kids that I've been a part of their lives.
Yeah. You're like the uncle.
I'm a part of their life and they're a part of mine. Yeah. Even the pastors call me Big Bro. They're like, "Hey, Big Bro. And they're my little brothers. Yeah. The wives are my little sisters and they call me Big Brother, and they do call me Uncle Richie. That's just how it is. But but there's a lot of opportunity out there to go other places. And I'd love to go, but, and the guys have opportunities to go. And I think Dylan and Travis may go to the UK. They're getting stuff worked out, and they're going to share the gospel and share the ministry over there. That's all part of it.
That's awesome.
They wouldn't go if it wasn't for that. They've approached me, and we've got an opportunity to go, but we want to go and represent WFC. And my thing is, there's not two better people to do that, because they live it. They live it.
Yeah.
Those are the two guys I was telling you earlier. I can't get rid of them now. They're part of the ministry.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities out there. Wrestling's all over the world. People love wrestling. It draws big numbers. And we get to the Philippines, we never charge.
Mm-hmm.
We never charge a dime. The first show we ever did, I was sitting in the front seat, me and Dan, and Dylan and Travis was in the back seat. And it was either Dylan or Travis said, "Man, this is like the Beatles." Because when we pulled into the compound, we couldn't get out of the car. They were climbing all over the vehicles.
Goodness.
We had to get security to come get the people off to get us out of the car. But they were the same. I was like, man, we're nobody.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
They just thought, here's the American wrestlers, because they don't have the money to go see stuff like that.
Right.
A lot of them don't have TVs to watch it on.
Yeah.
So for us to go over there and present it and get to do it for them, I mean, it really draws big numbers. And then they know we're there to share the gospel. It's presented as sharing the gospel. It's presented as a ministry, but that doesn't stop them from staying. We saw over 2,500 accept Christ last year.
Man.
Just last year alone, 2,500 accept Christ.
That's amazing.
But I tell the guys, and the guys would agree with me, and I think you would too, just like the other night. If we go over there and we wrestle in front of thousands of people and only one gets saved, but that makes that whole year of raising support worth it.
Absolutely.
It does. Just like the other night. Just like the other night. Man, what a blessing. What a blessing. And that's our same family. That's our same crowd.
Wow.
That's the one thing about doing the Wrestling for Christ at the Legion every month. We're drawing the same, so they hear the gospel. Most of those fans are saved, born-again Christians. They just love to come back and see the wrestling. And the gentleman that you led the other night has been coming. So the seed has been planted, and then it just took you. That was God's timing.
God knows what he's doing.
You, and we honestly, and I didn't tell you this, or maybe I did. We honestly thought about canceling that show because it was WrestleMania weekend. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it when I booked the dates in January that it was WrestleMania weekend. So the crowd was down. Everybody was at home watching WWE, but that kid comes to all the shows.
Wow!
And had I canceled, look, wouldn't happen.
That's amazing to me.
We were in the show, and we ain't got saved.
Man.
Yeah.
So when I watch it, and watch y'all, I mentioned the passion and the athleticism. Y'all are doing it. I mean, it's the real deal. The storylines, of course, there's the dynamics that are there, and then you get the 1-2 punch, which is the gospel, which is to me, and like you said, you sandwich the gospel with wrestling, and that's the delivery, and I absolutely love that. What is the future of Wrestling for Christ? Is there some? Do you feel like this is the? I guess you should say the recipe, or is there something that you're cooking up that you're thinking, man, this is the future?
Well,
what does that look like?
It starts this coming year. I'm glad you asked that question. Me and Dan Holman, my tag team partner, went to our first ever fair convention. Mm-hmm. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee. We actually went and set up a booth and are trying to get into a lot of the fairs. For years, all your fairs, like we do the Peach Festival every year. Mm-hmm. But when I was approached with the Peach Festival, the gentleman that knew it was Wrestling for Christ said, listen, what we've had in the past is not working. If you guys don't come and do it, we're not going to have it. Mm. So we this will be our third year doing the Peach Festival. But we had so many people come up to us, to our booth, and they'd see wrestling. They'd say like, we've tried that. We've tried that in the past. We've tried to bring wrestling to our county fairs, and it just didn't work. We had one gentleman. He was actually the president of that association in Raleigh, North Carolina. He said, we actually had to go out there and stop the show last year.
My goodness.
And tell them to get out of the ring because they were cursing. Mm. They were just making vulgar gestures towards the fans. And I said, sir, that's not what we are. Yeah. So they've got on our social media pages. They've seen our videos, and now they're starting to call us. Hey, brother, we went back and watched. Yeah, we want that kind of wrestling. Yeah. So we've already booked. Next year's going to be so busy. We're running fairs. We got fairs that we're running 3 and 4 nights a week. We got one fair in Raleigh. They want us all 6 nights. They
My
said,
goodness.
we want to bring wrestling back. Because, at one time, wrestling and boxing and stuff like that was the biggest draw.
Yep.
You had the demolition derby, and then you had wrestling. Well, we were really surprised at all the numbers that come by that said, yeah, we used to do wrestling. We don't do it anymore because it's not very family friendly.
Right.
It was like, well, give us opportunity. Here's who we are and here's what we do. Just check us out. So they have since went back and got on our social media pages. Pastors have called us and said, hey, brother, I've been following y'all for the last several months. We want y'all to be a part of our fair. We've already got contracts. I don't know how many contracts Dan has signed. He's the business guy. I mean, he handles all that. I handle booking the venues and booking the pastors. Dylan and Travis handle the locker room. They book all the talent. Jody, our gentleman, Jody Powell, handles all the speaking engagements, handles all the play-by-play. We're on Abundant TV. He handles all that for us. So everybody in WFC, our music guy, Drew Fulton, he has a job that he does. Everybody has a job to do. And it's just continuing to grow. But after going to that fair convention, now the phones are starting to ring. And we're getting these people that, even the guy that said, yeah, we stopped it last year. Well, him and his brother both have called me.
Wow.
I said, did my brother call you? Did he tell you we want y'all? Yeah, we want to bring wrestling back because that's our biggest draw.
Look
and
at
you're
God.
going to have a preacher. You're going to have a preacher, right? And I said, yes, sir. We have a preacher, a guest speaker, somebody sharing their testimony. Well, that's what we want. That's what we want. Well, I've got you speaking at the American
Maggie
celebration
Valley,
in Maggie Valley. Well, that's what that lady said. After she followed us and saw us, she said, the wrestling's okay, but you're going to have a preacher. You're going to have a preacher, right? And I said, yes, ma'am. We always have a guest speaker, a preacher, somebody. She's like, well, that's what we want. The wrestling, y'all can come and wrestle, but we want a preacher.
Man.
But she thinks that's amazing. She saw it and she's like, that will work. And I said, yes, ma'am, it will. So the wrestling will draw the crowd. And you put professional wrestling up, a lot of people don't care who it is. They just want to see guys get in there and slap each other around. But then you get to share the gospel on top of that.
Yeah.
And these fairs and these festivals are wanting that back. Yeah. And now they see that they can get it and see that. And it's not just us. There's other people out there that can do it. But Lord's just really opened a lot of doors. This past year in 2026 is probably going to be our biggest year ever.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, we're going all over the country, hitting all the fairs, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'm proud of you.
Yes, sir.
I'm really proud of you.
God is good. And it's not me. And you know that.
Yeah.
Like I said, my wife, as soon as I start saying this me, or us, or Dylan, or Travis, or Dan, or Fred, or Jody, Poffo, or I should have mentioned his name too. It's Wrestling for Christ and the New Millennium Championship Wrestling. Ray, we all call him Poffo. Shane Austin, he's our champion, and what a good champion he is too. He's a workhorse. Gets there early, stays late. He's part of the family too. I apologize for not bringing him up earlier, but we've been brothers for 30 plus years.
Wow.
And when I first broke my foot, we had a lot of WFC stuff booked. He just stepped right in. He's like, I got a ring. We'll just start using my ring. Don't worry about hauling your stuff. Had my shoulder surgery. I was like, listen, I'm going to have a hard time getting the ring. But man, I got you back. I got you covered.
Wow.
I'm WFC. I'm WFC all the way. And I'm like, no, you're New Millennium. He's like, no, man, I don't care about that New Millennium stuff. I'm WFC. I'm supporting this ministry. I'm part of this ministry.
My goodness.
But so he's along for the ride too. Him and his wife and his son. We've been good friends forever. But yeah, God's opened a lot of doors. And I think if we continue to give God the credit and do it for that, not for us, do it for him.
Yeah.
And you've heard it there again. I don't want people to see us.
Yeah.
I want people to see God through us.
That's right.
And I don't want to be the person that comes out and takes my clothes off and has my underwear on and see people walking out. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to do it. It's a good recipe. What we're doing is working. It's just getting better, and we're going to build on it and continue to grow. And just, I'd love to share the gospel in all 50 states.
Man, yeah.
We would do it. If somebody calls us from Alaska and says, is there any way? I said, brother, we'll get the ring there. If you got a ring, we'll come. Field of Dreams, you build it, they'll come. I told the pastor in the Philippines that if you build it, we'll come. And he believes us now. We go every year.
That's awesome.
And we're wrestling in different villages not going back to the same. We're sharing the gospel over there. And it's not just in wrestling. Vacation Bible School, sports camps, youth camps.
That's awesome.
The wrestling's just the fun part. Like I said, the cake, the sharing the gospel's the icing.
Of course.
Yes, sir.
That's
For
awesome.
sure.
That is awesome. There's I think there's so many different ways you can deliver the gospel to somebody, and you can preach the gospel, and you can share the gospel. And one of the most important things I think that we all have, and this is something that you might wrestle with, is how do I talk to somebody? What do I say when I talk to somebody? And I think we all have a different way that we talk about what God has done in our lives. You've said it several times, not I, but God, but God.
Mm-hmm.
Paul said it like this, yet not I, but Christ in me.
Exactly.
And that's the important thing to talk about. If it's about us, then it's not going to make it. It's not the gospel.
Yeah.
But if it's about God, if it's his story, then that's what matters. And I'm glad that you said that. You've said it several times that God has done this, God has opened the doors, God is moving this.
I've
and
had
that's
to learn
amazing.
that. I've had to learn that. Just I don't take credit for any of it because it's not me. God woke me up this morning, but I catch myself doing that, and I never mean to. And like I said, my wife's always been there to say, "You did it again." I was like, "Yeah, but you know what?" She's like, "Yeah, but it's all him."
Yeah.
And my guys, if they were here, they would tell you the same thing. It's not us.
He knows how to open doors.
He sure does.
He knows what your talents
are.
are.
We pray about it. We ask God to open a few doors, and man, he's just opened them and continues to do so.
Yeah.
You know, and if it was to all end today, it's been a good ride.
Amen.
God's opened them. We've seen a lot happen in just this ministry just over the last few years. And like I said, it's all been worth it. It just gets better and better.
So when is your Philippines trip?
July the 1st through the 16th. So we fly out the 1st, usually 24 hours on the plane. And then they'll probably have 6 to 8 shows already booked. So the team will come back on the 16th, and then I'll travel on. I've got another pastor in the part of the Philippines that has 36 churches, and I'll try to get to most of those and at least speak or share or talk to the pastors, hang out with the youth for a little while. So I usually stay another 2 weeks and then some. Tammy, my wife, always says, while you're there, hon, it's such an expensive trip. While you're there, stay as long as you want. It used to bother me. I was like, is she trying to tell me something? She don't want me to come home. But no, it is. It's a hard trip. It's a hard trip. And, you know, it may be a while before I get back. You know, I know it's going to be a year, at least a year and a half. So while I'm there, there's been a few times I've changed my return flight just so I can stay a little bit longer. Just whatever the Lord has me doing over there. I mean, if I go over there, and my guys are the same way. If we go over there and it's like, listen, we had to cancel the wrestling because we don't have this. Well, what do you need to have this? We do whatever we can to make that. Well, we got to dig a ditch for pipes to run some water. Give us the shovels, brother.
Yeah.
Give us the shovels. It's not about the wrestling. It's not a vacation. It's funny how guys will say that all the time. When y'all going back on vacation over there? I said that earlier. It's not. We go over to work.
Yeah.
We go over to work. The wrestling's work. I mean, it's work. It's a job.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't do it. If we were just to go over there to wrestling, I don't think we'd do it. Yeah. Just knowing that we get to share the gospel, because we can wrestle here all we want. But going over there, getting to share the gospel, that's what it's all about. And we've even talked about maybe next year, not even wrestling. Just telling the pastors, hey, we don't, because that's a lot of work for those guys. They have a ring crew that they bring in. We just want to come and go to work. You tell us what you need, what you want us to do. We'll do vacation Bible schools every day. Will you do youth camps there? But I told Dylan, Travis, and Dan and Fred, I said, they're going to want the wrestling at least once. But we don't have to wrestle. We just want to go over there and be used.
Well, that says a lot right there.
We want to be used. We don't have to wrestle. We want to go over and be used. Whatever they need, we'll support it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's real good. So, I feel like we got to cover this part. How can someone donate to your cause and help you all out?
We've got our Wrestling for Christ page on our Facebook page is Wrestling for Christ, and we have a QR code that they can go on and scan, and they can donate to the PayPal, or they can come to one of the events. All of our dates are on there. All of our upcoming dates. Just come to the event, buy a ticket, come sit at ringside, buy concessions. Now the concessions help support our veterans. So it's not, we do a lot of fundraisers too. Mm-hmm. But the money that we bring in, that's what we use to raise our support. But like if we do concessions, the concessions at the Legion goes back to the veterans, the local veterans. The school fundraisers that we do, they get sponsors that'll pay us, but every dime that comes in the door goes back to the school. But yeah, you can get on our Wrestling for Christ page, go to our QR code and scan it. You can come to one of our events. If you come to a Legion show or one of our church shows, the money that you spend is that's where we get our support.
Outstanding.
Yep.
Outstanding. Well, y'all have heard it. The church doesn't always have walls.
No, we are the church, brother. That's
right.
People. We are the church.
We take the church to the people. We share the gospel in every kind of way that we can. And some of us are singers, and some of us are preachers, and some of us are public speakers, and some of us can just write poems, and some of us write the songs but can't sing the song. Some of us play an instrument but we can't sing, and some of us we just blink real big, but some of us hand out tracts, and some of us read the Bible out loud, and some of us hand out Bibles and share Bibles, and some of us knock on doors and just tell you that we love you.
Exactly. Just use me, Lord. That's what I said. Just use me.
Like the prophet said, "Here I am, Lord. Here I am." That is how it starts. If someone were to come up to you, Brother Richie, and someone was to say, I may not be able to wrestle, I may not be able to sing, I may not be able to preach, I may not be able to do this, but how can I serve God? And here's the hardest question of the night. What's your answer to that person?
You know, I guess it's like this, Leon. People have asked me, I want to go to the mission field. What do I need to do? How do I serve God on the mission field? I tell them, you don't have to go to the Philippines. Go to your next door neighbor. Knock on his door. Go into your neighborhood. Go into your local businesses. It doesn't have to be the Philippines. I mean, I don't know if that's the right answer that you're looking for, but
it is.
You just, I mean, do you know that your neighbor's saved? Do you know that they're going to church? Do you know that the kids at the school? Yeah, it doesn't have to be the Philippines. You don't have to travel across the world to share the gospel. Share it in your backyard.
Amen.
Share it next door. Share it at the local restaurant.
Yeah.
Something that I've been tickled with here lately, and I don't know if you were at the church when Brother Chris Whaley, the Masked Saint, anytime I go eat with him, when I go to visit with him, and we're at a restaurant, when the waiter or waitress comes up, he stops him and says, "What can I pray for you today? Can I pray for you?" You would not believe the number of the I don't know if we've ever been anywhere where one of them have said, "I don't need anything." Somebody always needs something. Why not take that opportunity? It can be in a restaurant. It can be with that waiter or waitress. We've had them say, "Can you scoot over?" And then just they go over everything. And when we pray, he'll pray or I'll pray and ask the Lord for whatever that person's asked to pray for. It's that simple. It's that simple. I'm not a great speaker. I'm not a great public speaker. But I find it easy if you'll just close your eyes or just, Lord, speak through me. And it just comes out. It just comes out. I mean, it does. And that's, just what can you do for the Lord? Pray about it. There's something out there. Trust me. I would have never thought years ago that I could do wrestling for the Lord. There's something that you can be a school janitor for the Lord.
Yeah.
You can wash cars for the Lord. Share that gospel. If you're washing somebody's car at a car wash, it's so easy. We make it so hard. We make it hard. Just like when the pastor said, "Who's going to the Philippines?" and my hands went up. I told my son, I said, I guess I'm going to the Philippines. But that was the greatest decision I ever made. Other than my salvation, just being able to go. And I want to go. I want to go. I want that in my life. I want to be part of that. But it doesn't have to be with me. Somebody says they want to go on a mission field, brother, it's all around us. Yeah. It's all around us.
Well, that was the perfect answer.
Yep.
If it was a test, you would have passed. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Let me just say that in front of everybody. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy. I know that sometimes you take some hard falls, and sometimes you fall wrong, and sometimes the wrong blow will connect to the wrong spot, and we're people.
Yeah, I'm 6 weeks out now from my pectoral bicep rotator cuff tear. So injuries do happen, and that's pretty much wear and tear over the years.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything else. It's not the number of times you fall; it's the number of times you get back up.
Amen.
You just got to go. I think that was in a Rocky movie.
It might have been.
I think Sylvester Stallone said that in the Rocky Balboa movie. Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah.
I think that if the folks at home listening in, watching in, if they haven't learned anything today, I have. And here's what I've learned. I've learned that sometimes you just raise your hands. When the Lord says who's going, if you raise your hand, there's going to be a blessing.
Exactly.
I've learned that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not right. That serving other people isn't about you.
Exactly.
And that's why it's called serving. I've learned that sometimes the things that we take for granted are somebody's best day of their life.
Exactly.
And I've learned that brothers don't have to be related because with DNA. We're related because of the blood that Jesus shed for us. That's what I've heard today. Y'all, if you didn't hear that, go ahead and start the podcast back over and listen from the beginning and intently listen for those points. This man, my guest, my friend, my brother, puts his body on the line for Jesus, not for notoriety, not for whatever. I mean, you had told me that
if it was up to me, I'd fail, brother.
Yeah, you told me 300,000 plus.
Yep.
Watch the wrestling event
on Abundant TV. That's an app you can get on your phone, and that's been a blessing too. We're able to get that out. We're picking up thousands of homes in the Philippines. We're picking up thousands of homes in Germany. That's another. I lived in Germany for several years, and that's another place I would love to go and wrestle. But I would only go if I could share the gospel.
Yeah,
I'm not one of these that's like, well, I wrestled there. I wrestled. No, I want to go and share the gospel.
That's
Wrestling
right.
would be fun, but I want to do it and be able to share the gospel.
Well, that's the difference.
Exactly.
Because if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't missionary work, it'd be tourism.
Exactly.
And
you're exactly right. And I'm not a tourist.
You're not a tourist.
No, I'm not.
The toilets aren't nice enough to be a tourist.
No, you're exactly right, brother. But God's been so good to me. I mean, my life has just changed drastically since the inception of the WFC.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's a job. I mean, it's a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
I stress a lot over it. And here's my wife gets on to me all the time when I'll go to stress, and she said, "Well, did you pray about it?"
Mm.
And then it just seems
Preach,
like,
woman.
Yep, when I pray about it, it's like everything just works out.
Yeah.
I just need to let go and let God. I've learned that a lot too.
Yeah.
When it comes to the ministry, if things aren't going right, they're not going right for a reason.
Yeah.
Just like the show the other night, we came so close to canceling. I was like, I already got the pastor, I already got the preacher booked, I already got the venue booked. Oh, we're going to do it. I don't care if nobody shows up. Well, that one person showed up. He came for that reason. He knew he was going to hear preaching. They all know they're going to hear preaching.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was worth it.
Well, and that's why I love the idea of the Abundant TV and y'all filming it because, for the person who can't get there, for the person who might be homebound or whatever, they're going to hear the gospel.
Well, Abundant TV, we're on Monday nights at 6:30 and Thursday nights at 9, and we're picking up a lot of viewers. And,
so tell us how we use the Abundant TV app.
You just get on your smartphone, your Roku stick. It's just Abundant TV. Just click on it. It's free download. It's got a lot of good gospel music, got a lot of good shows, a lot of good talk shows. There's 3 wrestling shows on there. We have Pastor Chris Whaley and Jeff Dixon. We just wrestled at their church last week. They have a show on Monday nights called The Clash. Mm. And then Jody Powell has a show called Falls Count Anywhere. And it's daily life, a little bit of wrestling. I love Jody's show because it talks about current events, talks about how to handle certain situations in your life, all biblical stuff, all gospel. They share the gospel on there. Jody shares it on every show. And then of course we have our Abundant TV, which Jody is the speaker and handles all that for us too.
Okay.
And I'm still learning. But those are 3 shows that I know if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to like those three shows.
Awesome.
The Clash has a guest. They just had Ted DiBiase. They've had Nikita Koloff. They've had Mark Marrow. They've had the American GI. But and then Jody and them. Jody and Mike Buchanan have Falls Count Anywhere, and they dwell in a lot of stuff. You just have to watch. I can't really explain it. They're good at what they do. Just God's opened a lot of doors for them too. It's just a God-given talent these guys have to do what they do.
Awesome.
Yeah. So all three of those shows are great shows.
Awesome. Well, I sure do appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, if you haven't looked up Wrestling for Christ, look them up. If you haven't looked up the New Millennium Wrestling, then look them up. If you haven't looked up the Abundant TV, look that up. It's all faith-based. It's all good. They're good people. I know them personally. I would not advocate for anybody if I didn't think that they were doing it for the Lord. And you heard it right here. The passion can't be faked. Nobody wants to go someplace where they might be in 120 degrees just because of being there. They don't make money on it. They spend money to do it. It's ministry. It's a passion. And if you want to get into missionary work, then reach out to Brother Richie on the Facebook page and learn. Do it. I mean, my Bible says, "Go ye therefore." And it doesn't say, hey, whenever you're comfortable, do it. It doesn't say don't talk to anybody unless you feel radically, better than whatever. You're not. You're not going to feel good enough. You're never going to. If you feel like I'm good enough to talk to people, then that's here, not here. And there's a problem. We need to pray about that. The humble people reach people way more thoroughly than someone with an egotistical outlook on life. God will humble you. Life will humiliate you.
You're right.
God will pick a humiliated man up, brush him off, and send him on a way to where he can share the gospel, or she. Women can be used too.
Exactly.
Don't misquote that. But this, you heard it here on this broadcast. I hope that it's touched you. I hope that you feel the same way I do, and encouraged by a man that loves God, and the guys that have just put themselves around him, and all of them put God first. And that's amazing to me. I appreciate you joining. I appreciate you listening. For those of you on the audio, thank you for streaming on all the different platforms. This is the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson, and I love you, and God loves you.
Thank you.